Hello everybody and welcome back to Tehillim Treasures, sponsored by two wonderful organizations. Chazaq has been providing excellent material of inspiration and Torah learning for many years, but especially the last few years where we found ourselves stuck by a computer sometimes, and Chazaq was one of those organizations that stepped up to the plate and provides really endless opportunities for growth and inspiration. This is also sponsored by Chickens for Shabbos at chickensforshabbos.com. And I'd like to add, stop for a moment and imagine if you were in their shoes. A family of somebody who was an aguna, a family of somebody who was not able to make it to grusha, or perhaps families of melamdim that don't have the necessary funding sometimes to even put food on the table or buy shoes for their children. For $250, you can sponsor one family for a week. And let's be honest, that's not all that much money, and it doesn't provide them with all that much other than the bare minimum for what they need to be able to live. Grab hold of this schus, chickensforshabbos.com. Today we will be doing Kapitel Memhei and Kapitel Memvav, chapter 45 and 46, as we continue to make our way through David HaMelech's timeless treasure, Sefer Tehillim. In the 45th chapter of Tehillim, once again, the author is the Bnei Korach. And the Bnei Korach, the sons of Korach, speak about Talmidei Chachamim. How fitting. Their father, unfortunately, fell tragically short for being Machshiv Talmidei Chachamim. He was Mevaze Moshe Rabbeinu. He was the one that rallied Klal Yisrael and created a machloikes. And forever, he and the people that joined him will live or actually died in infamy. His children learned from their father's mistake, and they extol the virtues of the Talmid Chacham. Lanatzeach al Shoishanim livnei Korach. The Shoishanim. Who are the Shoishanim? Zog Rashi HaKadosh. The Talmidei Chachamim are as soft as the petals of the roses. Roses. Beautiful, gorgeous roses. A symbol of beauty, a symbol of love. That is what Talmidei Chachamim represents. Oozing with good deeds, beautifully fragrant, smelling good. Not only they, but more importantly, their Maisim Toivim smell good. That is the Shoishanim of the Bnei Korach that they speak about the Talmidei Chachamim. And in the middle of this parak, we speak about Avas Tzedek, the love of righteousness. If you want to see true righteousness, look at the way a Talmid Chacham conducts himself in the tense situations of justice. Ahavto tzedek vatisno resha. You love righteousness and hate wickedness. Rabbeinu Shalom, the Talmidei Chachamim, are the ones that bring out these milas in the best way possible. One time, a Polish governor asked the Oyev Yisro, Reb Avram Yeshua Heschel, the Apterov. They asked him, how is a Jewish court of law able to judge properly? Take the Christian courts for a moment. He says there's a special courthouse, there's 3 judges, they're dressed in long black robes, they sit on a high prestigious bench, and the case is observed by many people who are able to witness the prosecution and witness the defense. They ensure that there's no perversion of justice along the way. Everything is done according to the law. Each of the litigants brings an attorney. each one presents his case. And if one of the litigants is unhappy with his attorney, or he's unhappy with the verdict of the judges when they make their decision, then you can appeal the decision to make sure that justice is served. That's for us, said the governor, for the Christian court of law. But what about for you, for the Jewish courts? How do you have justice? Jewish law, two people go into the shabby house of the young rabbi. The rabbi listens for about 30 minutes to each one presenting his case. He pulls out a book from the bookcase that is about to topple over because it's really overwhelmed by the amount of books that are in there. He studies it for a little bit of a period of time, and then he comes to a decision. We spend weeks and weeks mulling over our decision, and your rabbi decides immediately after such a short discussion between the two litigants. How can you be sure that justice is being served? That was the governor's question to the Apterov. The Ohev Yisrael answered, and he gave the following mashal. He said there was once a wolf that caught a sheep and he killed it. He brought his prize back to the lair. And on the way, he met a lion. And the lion looks at the wolf, and the lion was hungry and very, very happy that the wolf had done his dirty work. And he tried to intimidate the wolf to give up the meal, but the wolf was very upset. And the two argued, and the two decided, you know what? We're going to bring this case to a court of law. Who is going to decide the case? None other than the wily fox. Okay. The two ferocious animals are standing before the fox, and each one presents its case. And after looking into the matter, says the Apterov, the fox decided that the only solution would be to divide the sheep in half. That's my decision. But the fox says, but I also have to get my part. After all, I'm the judge. And so the fox splits the sheep in half. But he nibbles a little bit on the larger portion and nibbles a little bit on the smaller portion. After it finished, it then measured the two pieces. And again, he noticed one size was bigger than the other. And he continues to nibble a little more, and then a little more, and then a little more. For those of you that have ever shaved, it's like when you're trying to shave your beard and you get a little bit too close and you try to shave. Before long, it's a disaster. Well, this time, by the time the fox was done with trimming away his portion of the sheep, the wolf and the lion were left with nothing but scraps and bones. Zokt the Ohev Yisrael. This is what happens in your cases. There's two people that are trying to get money out of one another. And you have lawyers and attorneys. You have judges. You have all types of people that are nibbling away from the money. And by the time the case is over, there's very little for the litigants. But in a Jewish court of law, we want justice to be served in the proper manner. Sometimes there has to be a din Torah. Talmidei Chachamim take very little for themselves, a bare minimum, and the rest is left, and justice is truly served. The governor smiled. He had his answer. Talmidei Chachamim are often put in a very difficult situation. Rabbonim, Dayanim, and sometimes two people who are very upset with each other come to them and they want them to decide what should be done. But the beauty of Bezdin is that as uncomfortable of a situation as it is, when people are mevatel themselves to the das of Bezdin, which is the way it must be, then everybody walks away, if not happy, but at least satisfied that justice in the eyes of Bezdin, which means in the eyes of the Torah, justice was served. May we all be zoiche to be able to be mekabel the words of Talmidei Chachamim, so that justice, when the need be served properly. Now we move on to Kapitel Memvav, the next kapitel from the Bnei Korach. You know, very often when I speak to guys that I interacted with many, many years ago, whether it was camp or Talmidim, they'll often make a comment at the end of the conversation, and they'll say, hopefully it was a pleasant conversation, but they'll say, it's nice to be able to reflect back on times when life was much simpler. And when I've shared this with other people, they nod knowingly because it's so true. When we were younger, life was simple. Our biggest issue was he safe or out on the ball field? Our biggest issues were, where are we going to get a suit for Yontif? Our biggest issues were, should we go to this camp or that camp? And when you get older, life becomes more complicated. And the difficulties of life and the pain of life sometimes becomes a very, very difficult burden to bear. The 46th parak of Tehillim will help us to be able to get much comfort and to be able to ease some of that pain, to make life taka more simple. There was a Maggid, his name was Rabbi Ephraim of Brot, and he tells over a story about a paritz. Now, generally a paritz, when we talk about a paritz we refer to as somebody who's not a nice person. He was a mean, goyish landlord. But this paritz was a very nice person. He was a nice landlord. And many people rented their homes and businesses from him, and there was one Jew who also did. The price was 300 rubles a month. The Jew, every single month, paid his rent properly and accordingly on the first day of the month. One day, the landowner came to him and he said, listen, I want you to know that I'm going to be going away for a while. And because I'm going away for a while, I have a manager, and he is going to oversee all of my business dealings. He is going to be the landlord in my place. He's going to be the one that collects the rent from you. Now the Jew was very, very disappointed because he knew that the paritz was a very nice person, but he also knew that the manager was not a nice person. He was an anti-Semit. He was somebody who hated Jews. And he was not a kind person. He was not a fair person. He was not an honest person. He was a money-hungry person. And because of that, the Jew had a feeling that this is not going to end well. The first month, he gets a note. This manager was hiking up all the prices. He was going to make sure that everybody had to pay much more than they had paid to the paritz. This caused the Yid tremendous anxiety, tremendous worry. He was very, very concerned. He didn't know what was going to be. So the manager, who was going to charge them now double the amount that they were paying previously, he really was in charge. And there was nothing to do. Payday arrived, and the Jew was 20 rubles short. Not short of the 300 that he used to pay, but short of the 600 that he was paying now, which was an exorbitant ask. It was a tremendous hike, tremendous increase. He couldn't pay more. Well, he asked the landlord or the manager, would you be able to bypass this one payment? Give me 20 rubles credit. Let me pay only 580 this month. The manager would hear nothing of it. 20 rubles short, 20 lashes. And he took him out in the back and he began to whip him. And this is what he did to many of the people, but for the Jew, It was an extra harsh beating, and it was taking its toll. One day, the Paritz returns to the hometown after this had gone on for numerous months. The Jew went and he told him about the evil actions of the manager. He told him how he had stolen from the tenants. He told him about the beatings. He told him about the lashes. He told him about the suffering that he had endured. The landowner was very, very upset with his manager. He couldn't believe that he had mistreated all of the tenants, but especially the Jews, so badly. He decided he's going to make it up to the Jew. And he said, you know what? For every blow, for every beating, for every lash that you had to endure over these last number of months, the manager would have to pay you 100 rubles. Since he had gotten 20 lashes from the manager, 2,000 rubles a month the Jew made back. And the manager had to give up all of his property, and the poor Jew one day became a rich man because he took over everything that the manager had once owned. When the Jew heard that this was going to be the consequences for the manager who had mistreated him, the Jew had one thought. If only I had been beaten more, I could have been even a richer man. Sometimes a Yid, says Rabbi Ephraim of Brot, goes through suffering and punishment and beatings and lashes. For whatever reason it is, those are the consequences we've had to face. But one day, everything will be made up to us. One day, all of the suffering that we endured in Olam Hazeh will be paid back to us in Olam Haba. And when that time comes, we'll be so grateful for the suffering we endured. We'll be mekabel the Yisurin ba'ava. It's difficult to imagine now. It's difficult for us to be able to process that when we're going through the suffering. But that is the attitude that a Yid has to try to work towards. And that is the message of the Bnei Kairach. Labatzeach livnei Kairach ala lomay shir, elikim lanu machse va'oiz, Ezra v'tzoroiz nimtza me'oid. Hashem is a refuge and a strength for us, a help in distress. Alamois, sometimes the word ne'ela means hidden. Sometimes it's difficult because the reward that we're receiving is hidden. The tenant doesn't know that the manager is going to have to pay him back one day. And one day, all of that suffering will be a shear. It will be a song for us. It will be something that we benefit from greatly. We have to try to keep that in mind. And when we do, even though it's difficult, even though there's a lot of suffering, we'll be able to smile and we'll be able to say, one day life will once again be simple. And that will bring us back to happy times. So until next time, sei gesund and be well.